So what the hell is going on in Greenland then? In 2019, Donald Trump first said that he wanted to buy Greenland, and the media all laughed, and Denmark called it absurd. They would. But what if I told you it wasn't a joke? And it isn't a joke now when he's repeated it. Because under the ice, literally and politically, lies one of the biggest stories that the media hasn't explained. Why not? This isn't about Trump going mad. It's about natural resources. It's about foreign interference, power struggles, and the people of Greenland caught between a colonial history and their own determined strategic future. And this week, there have been calls again from Trump, and Vice President Vance even visited, and he had some key words to say.
That's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is.
So this is Greenland's story. And if it is true, it'll change how you listen to the narrative and the propaganda being pumped out at you by your media, by the EU, by Denmark. Listen, let's do history. So Greenland is the world's largest island that isn't a continent. It sits between the North Atlantic and the Arctic Ocean. To the west, Canada. To the east, Iceland. And then Europe. It's roughly 1/4 the size of the United States, but only about 56,000 people live there. They're mostly Inuit and they're descendants of ancient Arctic hunters. The capital is called Nuuk, and the official language is Greenlandic. Although most of them speak Danish as well, they were forced to. Most live along the ice-free southwest coast, actually, and the rest, well, it's uninhabitable because 80% of the island is covered in ice. Now, Greenland was colonized by Denmark and Norway in the 18th century. I don't hear any screams for reparations about that, though. No calls from anywhere, really. Not that anyone would pay them any attention. No one ever pays the people of Iceland any attention. Before that, though, it was home to Inuit tribes and briefly Norse settlers, including Eric the Red around 985 AD. Yeah, I like Vikings. Isabel, find a picture, kind of a Netflix one, of Eric the Red, not a real one, because he won't look as good. Anyway, after Norway and Denmark split in 1814, Denmark kept Greenland. And in 1953, it officially became part of Denmark. No one asked the people. In 1979, though, Greenland was granted home rule. And in 2009, they got self-rule. And today, Greenland does control its own domestic affairs, including natural resources, supposedly. But Denmark still controls all foreign power, all defense, and monetary policy. So Greenland is self-governing, but not independent. And that's the key to this whole story, because polls show that Greenlanders do support independence in principle, because they see themselves as Inuit first, not Danish. And there's a powerful cultural revival underway, reclaiming their language and their traditions and their national pride. Of course, there should be. But there's a catch: the economy. Because over 60% of Greenland's government budget comes from Denmark in the form of an annual block grant of around £450 million. If Greenland left Denmark to become independent, that money then disappears. And right now, Greenland doesn't earn enough on its own to make up the difference. So for many, it's a matter of if they can afford to be independent. It isn't a matter of when. They definitely want to be. And under the ice, is treasure. See, Greenland has massive deposits of rare earth elements, uranium, zinc, copper, iron ore, and gold. And it could become a key supplier of those materials that the world now desperately needs for electronics, electric vehicles, renewable energy technology, and of course, military systems. One site alone in southern Greenland holds 38.5 million tons of rare earth oxides. That's huge. And that's just one explored site in one area. And the ice is melting. And that changes everything because it's exposing resources once thought utterly unreachable. And suddenly, right there, Greenland is not just a remote icy outpost any longer. It's a strategic prize. Now, Greenland is melting again. Not due to man-made climate change, just climate change, because it's melted before. Ice cones show periods like the medieval warm period were in Greenland and the mini ice age when it was frozen to even greater depths than it is today. The climate has always fluctuated and the current warming is real, but the cause is, just propaganda. Solar cycles, ocean currents, volcanic activity, they are all playing their part as they always have done in Greenland. The problem is, Greenland became a poster child by design. And the environmentalists and the media and the EU say we must keep Greenland untouched to protect the planet. Don't give the Greenlanders the say. No, we've all decided for them. So locals are being told to stay poor to protect our climate guilt, supposedly. And it's all propagated by those that need to suppress exploration. So in theory, yes, Greenland controls its own natural resources and it can approve mining licenses or it can invite investors. You say, why doesn't it just do that? Why doesn't it just invite mining companies to come in and explore where those areas of land are seeing a retraction of ice? It can't really, because in practice, Denmark and the EU apply massive pressure. Denmark still handles all its foreign affairs, and it uses diplomatic back channels to kill deals it doesn't like. It can delay permits, pressure banks, stir up media stories about foreign exploitation. And that's exactly what happened a few years ago when China did try to invest in building airports in return for some mineral deals. Denmark swooped in, blocked the deal, and ended up funding an airport itself. So Greenland's legal autonomy is clear on paper, but the economic and political reality is much, much murkier than that. So another example is, even though Greenland has control, supposedly, over its resources, those large-scale mining operations require outside capital. And Greenlandic companies are small and they lack financial and technical means to develop any of those resources alone. And if a US or a Chinese or any other investor steps in, it triggers intense scrutiny by the environmentalists, by Denmark and the EU, and they find ways, sometimes very publicly, sometimes quietly, to stall it or stop it. So look at the heavy-handedness in 2021, when Greenland elected a new government that opposed uranium mining. And you have to look at that election result because it was driven by environmental non-government organizations, those NGOs funded by someone else's government to have significant influence on the local political debate and stop those explorations. Their campaigns helped to ensure that Chinese-backed projects were shut down. And these groups claimed it was about the environment, but the geopolitical undertones are just completely obvious because the EU can't afford and doesn't want anyone else to get those resources. There are reports that the EU bodies have pressurized Greenland over fishing quotas, over infrastructure projects and trade rules, using access to funding as leverage. It's soft power, yeah, but it's not very subtle. So Trump was interested in Greenland for a couple of reasons. One, he agrees. Of course, the people of Greenland should be independent. America is the great independent nation, right? Of course, those people should be allowed to decide and not held tight by the purse strings of Denmark doling out little bits of money. But Trump also knew that Greenland was sitting on vital resources, and he knew that China had made moves there. The US have an airbase, Thule Air Base. It's a key missile defense and satellite surveillance station, been there since after the war. And that base, built during the Cold War, remains one of the most important American military sites in the Arctic because it tracks satellite, it monitors missile activity, and it serves as an early warning system for threats from Russia or other powers, because its location is just 750 miles from the North Pole, making it crucial for missile detection, space surveillance, and Arctic operations. And it also plays a vital role in the US missile shield strategy. So this is often referred to as an Iron Dome, like Israel has. It's very good. It's a great system. Now, the one that Trump is talking about in the US missile shield strategy is slightly different, but it does a very similar thing. And what it means is that if a nuclear missile was launched from Russia towards the US, it would have to travel over the Arctic, over Greenland. And that makes it not just a military outpost, but the very first line of defense, which means that Trump's interest in Greenland isn't just about resources or independence or real estate. It's about national and global security. And arguably at this point, Canada and Europe should be just as invested in Greenland becoming independent and working with the US, because if the Arctic becomes a battleground, Europe is next in line. But they can't afford it, and they definitely don't want Trump to have it.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. We will keep you safe. We will make you rich, and together we will take Greenland to heights like you have never thought possible before.
So the idea wasn't crazy, it was just blunt. And Trump presumably thought the media would give some background, but of course they didn't. And after Trump made his original bid, China backed off. And the US opened a new consulate in Greenland for the first time in decades, really trying to have some soft influence over the people of Greenland. So because independence comes at a cost, and to be fully independent, Greenland would have to replace those Danish subsidies. And that would allow them to fast-track mining, build export infrastructure, attract foreign investors, and set up defense arrangements, probably with the US. And Denmark and the EU just don't want that. So they lean on the environmental arguments to slow that mining down, saying it will harm the pristine Arctic. But you don't hear them screaming that about cobalt mines in Congo, do you? Or lithium in Chile? No, I don't hear them talking about that at all. So the arguments in Greenland are convenient and very deeply hypocritical. And Greenlanders are starting to see through it. But until they can plug that financial hole from Denmark, they're a little bit stuffed. When Trump tried to buy Greenland, he wasn't suggesting buying and paying for Greenland and owning it. He was suggesting giving them independence and he would invest in it. But when it was mentioned, they mocked him. They treated Greenland like a frozen rock. And today, much of the mainstream media parrots the EU and the Danish narratives. They are framed as dangerous, and they frame China as benign. Greenlanders as naive. They sidestep the deep, deep story about post-colonial control, economic blackmail, Arctic power plays. The media isn't neutral in this. They're doing as they're told. The people of Greenland aren't helpless, and they're not to be used as pawns. They're proud, they're capable, and if they want their independence, then that is what they should have, no matter how much the EU scream. They want to be free, self-reliant, good for them. Stop treating them like children. If they want to make agreements with the US, then they should absolutely be able to do that, because they know that it's much more than ice, more than maps, more than missiles or minerals. It's also about them. But really, no one cares about them. They care about the Iron Dome. They care about the resources and who's going to buy it first. So that's the story of Greenland. Let me know what you think. You might think I'm wrong. Tell me. Tell me below. See you next time.